I would like to welcome you all today to this webinar. My name is Hannah Smith and I work at National Archives of Australia. And this is a collaborative webinar between the National Archives of Australia and the National Library of Australia. And it's to celebrate Papua New Guinea's 50th anniversary of independence. And so we've both been doing work in our collections to digitise records and make them available for the public. So we wanted to show you today how to find those records in the collection and tell you a bit about the work that we've done. I'll now throw over to our first presenter. We've got 4 presenters today, but we're kicking off with Amanda. So take it away, Amanda.
Thanks, Hannah. So hi, everyone. My name is Amanda, and I'm Manager of Reference and Community Outreach here at the National Archives of Australia, also known as the NAA, which you'll see us referred to throughout the presentation. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the country throughout Australia and acknowledge their continuing connection to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to the people, their cultures and elders, past, present and emerging. I'd also like to make any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people watching today aware that this presentation and our wider archival collection may contain images of deceased persons. Now, as mentioned, I work in our reference services team here at the NAA. My team assists members of the public to access records in our collection, often acting as the bridge between people and the records, helping them navigate our database or to locate records that may not have yet been described online. For those who aren't aware, the NAA is the archives of the Australian federal government. We collect the records created by federal government agencies, as well as manage, protect, store, and facilitate access to them for future generations. More than that, we serve as one of the nation's memory keepers, preserving archives which reveal the history of Australian government and its links to people and places, and preserving stories that illuminate the shared history and experiences of its people. Due to Australia and Papua New Guinea's shared history, the National Archives holds a large number of significant records relating to PNG, dating from around the 1890s, possibly even a little earlier, through to PNG's independence in 1975. Here you can see a list of some of the various types of records that the National Archives holds relating to PNG. As you can see, within the NAA collection are records such as maps, architectural plans, patrol reports, photographs, war service records, correspondence, as well as records relating to land ownership and land title. And honestly, the list goes on. This list is probably not even complete. It's just the ones that I could track down. Our collection also documents PNG's transition to independence, which is particularly significant this year, with it, of course, being the 50th anniversary of Papua New Guinea's independence. The National Archives has been celebrating and commemorating PNG's 50th anniversary of independence through a wide range of programs, activities and events, such as our webinar today. But a significant contribution has been the extensive preservation, description and digitisation work that we've done on a number of prominent series of PNG records. Many of the photographs of PNG in our custody, for example, are glass plate negatives, which, as you can imagine, are very fragile items. Extensive work was done to clean and repackage these glass plates, keeping them safe for the future. The glass plates also did not come to the NA with captions, so our description team undertook what's called reparative description, conducting research to find overlap with images in other collections, and also collaborated with experts to help find other references to help us learn more about these images so that we could add to and improve titles. And to make our photographic PNG collection more accessible and minimise physical wear and tear over time, over 3,800 of these photographs have been carefully digitised and placed onto our record search database. In terms of our paper records, over 1,700 files comprising of over 203,000 pages in total, from often large or fragile files, have been digitised and loaded to record search. These are only a small portion of our holdings on PNG, and these records were selected from a range of series including gazettes, service dossiers, land title records, correspondence files, patrol reports, and foreign affairs records. It's been an absolutely amazing effort from staff across a range of team and offices to undertake this work. And for those conducting research into PNG means more records available to view online at the click of a mouse. Now, so far I've been talking about about records and photographs, but what I want to do to really bring these words to life is share a few stories from our records. The first person I'm going to talk about today is Harold Eustace Woodman. Harold Woodman was born in Gawler, SA, I hope I've pronounced that right, and it seems was destined for an action-packed life. When he was 14 years old, Harold was awarded a Royal Shipwreck and Humane Society Medal for jumping into a reservoir fully dressed in an attempt to save a young boy. The article is actually on our colleagues NLA's Trove database. In August 1914, only days after enlistments opened for World War I, Harold left his trade as a carpenter and enlisted in the AIF, aged 22. Harold was among the first troops to land at Gallipoli and earned promotion after promotion, as well as injury after injury, being wounded in action a total of 5 times during his World War I service. On the left, you can see a page from his World War I service record in our custody. In 1926, Harold was approved for a job as a foreman carpenter in New Guinea, with his transport costs paid by the administration, provided that he stayed employed with them for at least 12 months. Harold left Sydney for PNG on the 21st of April 1926. However, only 3 months later, the administrator in Rabaul reported that Harold had abruptly resigned as a carpenter to instead try his luck prospecting at the goldfields. So Harold was, of course, ordered to repay the cost of his passage to PNG for leaving employment early. 1 year later, in 1927, it appears Harold had a change of heart about his career when he took a role as an assistant district officer in the then territory of New Guinea. This was the start of Woodman's role as a KIAP. These two middle images were taken from Harold's PNG staff file in Series A452. Now, many of you may be familiar with the term KIAP, but for those who aren't, it was the term given to Australian district officers and patrol officers. The term derived from the German word, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I think it's Kapitan, and officers were responsible for administration, security, and basic services in remote areas where they were posted. On the left, you can see a page, an example of a page from a patrol report, of which we hold large collection from the Territories Branch and Department of External Territories. Patrol reports are an invaluable source of information about PNG. Across several decades, they were regularly written by the district and patrol officers and contain information such as personnel accompanying the patrol, geological features, traditional customs, differing dialects and vocabulary, observations on ceremonies, information about housing and gardens, and some even contain detailed maps and photographs, such as the one you see there. Woodman's reports were noted to have had particularly good attention to detail. Harold spent the next 12 years as a district officer and worked in a range of areas across PNG listed here, and became one of the best known district officers in PNG, as evidenced by the extract from the Pacific Islands Monthly in 1940, shown at the top here, but also by a rather remarkable statue made by the Wasera people in PNG in the 1930s. So that's the one on the bottom right. That statue is held over at the National Gallery of Australia. Harold went back into military service in June 1940 during World War II, and we hold his World War II service records also. And towards the end of the war, returned to PNG to take charge of the Madang district before retiring to Penrith, New South Wales. He passed away in 1974 at the age of 82. The second person I'm going to talk to you about today is a PNG serviceman named Yowiga. Within the World War II service records held by the National Archives are the service records for the Papua New Guinean men who served in the Papuan and New Guinea infantry battalions of the Australian Army. These now digitised records enable us to better understand, remember and reflect on the service and sacrifice of the PNG men who served. One of these servicemen was a PNG man named Yowiga, from the Barambu village near Wewak. My sincere apologies if I am not pronouncing any of these correctly. Yowiga had been a member of the New Guinea Police Force for 12 years by the time of Japanese invasion in 1942, when he joined the Allied Intelligence Bureau M Special Unit. and participated in operations until he was evacuated in August 1943, when he received the Loyal Service Medal. Under the auspices of the Allied Intelligence Bureau, he participated in reconnaissance ventures into Bougainville in late 1943. Ewing was involved in Operation Cherry Blossom in early November 1943, notifying American troops of the Japanese air response to the landing of US Marines and Allied units in Cape Torokina. Afterwards, he was sent to Brisbane for special training before returning to Bougainville in October 1944 with Allied Intelligence Bureau guerrilla forces. So you can see there we've got some pages from his service record as well as a photograph that's from the War Memorial. It was in this role that misfortune unfortunately struck Ewing in May 1945. He mistook a phosphorus grenade for a smoke grenade, pulling the pin out. He experienced devastating injuries, including the loss of his left forearm, blindness in both eyes, and severe burns to his head and body. Here you can see pages from his service record outlining his injuries, along with a newspaper article about the incident. In November 1945, Ewing was evacuated to Brisbane, where he was given a corneal transplant, which was successful in restoring partial sight to one of his eyes. While cornea transplants had been done for a while in other countries, the first Australian one was only performed 5 years earlier in Brisbane. Ewing's was the only one performed in the Australian military forces at the time. As an interesting note, the transplant had also given him the physical characteristic of having one blue eye from his donor. Ewing spent 3 months in Australian hospitals before he was discharged, and with his service over, he retired to his Sepik village in May 1946. His surgeon reached out a few years later, as you can see in the bottom image there, that's one of the letters from his doctors, inquiring how his sight was going and noting that the information, the update, could have a considerable effect on corneal transplant in Australia. Both the article and the letter can be found in his service record in our custody. In 1948, he received the Distinguished Conduct Medal on top of other medals and honours he had already received. The medal ceremony was witnessed by over 80,000 Sepik people. He became a community leader and led transformative changes in his community following World War II. In 1970, he was even flown to Canberra to meet the Queen during their Royal Australian tour. And he unfortunately passed away in 1982. On the right, you can see an image of an oil painting of Ewing, which is held at the Australian War Memorial. So it's a gorgeous, gorgeous portrait. One last thing I'll mention before I hand over is a specific few series of PNG photographs in our collection. Now, earlier I mentioned the glass plate negatives, which had significant preservation and digitization work done, and 2 of these series are the F.E. Williams collection. So the F.E. Williams collection documents the life and work of anthropologist Francis Edgar Williams in PNG from 1922 to 1935, and the photographs were taken in his capacity as government anthropologist. His photographs cover many aspects of his life, of the life of PNG community, and are a rich and unique resource of great significance to the Asia-Pacific region. This was recognised by their inscription on the UNESCO Memory of the World Asia-Pacific Register in 2012. There are 2,000 negatives in total from this collection, dispersed across the NAA, the South Australian Museum, and the National Archives of Papua New Guinea. These series of records were digitised, so these 2 series were digitised and are available to view online on our record search database. Now that's it for the main part of our NAA presentation. I'll now hand over to Rebecca from the National Library of Australia.
Thanks so much, Amanda. That was a fascinating insight into some of your collections. They look absolutely beautiful. So I am Rebecca. I work at the National Library as a senior advisor in curatorial and collection research, and my team is involved in the curatorial work around items that are digitised. Before I start today, I would like to acknowledge that I'm working and living on the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, and pay my respect to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to any First Nations people watching today or later on. Now, to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the independence of PNG, the National Library has digitised some collections, and I'm just going to move on to the National Library slide. We've digitised the parliamentary debates, which you can see on that slide there. We hold in our collection, and this includes parliamentary debates from the pre-independence era through independence up until the 1990s. We will also be digitising a selection of newspapers, and not all of those are up on Trove yet, but they will be added over the next little while. And there are some gaps in the collection, as you'll see from the dates on the slides. For example, we have digitised the parliamentary debates from 1975 and 1976, and from 1992 to 1999, but the National Library doesn't hold the 1976 to 1992 debates, so we haven't digitised them. Now, I just wanted to say I'm not an expert in Papua New Guinea history, and I'm sure, in fact, many of you watching are far more familiar with the history than I am. So what I'm hoping to do today is to just give you some highlights and maybe some starting points of exploration in particularly the parliamentary debates collection, because I believe there's a lot in there and that you'll find interesting on multiple levels. So I'll talk through some of the key historical moments you can find in the papers, some examples of speeches from prominent figures in PNG history, and some of the ways the material can shed light on local history as well as national political history. And I'll also, towards the end of the presentation, highlight a few other digitised collections we have in the National Library and on Trove that I think you might find interesting. After Ruben speaks, my colleague Liz from the National Library will be back to give you some tips and tricks on the best way to search Trove, so you can find information about PNG history in Trove more easily. So let's start with some key moments. I'm going to start with the parliamentary debates, of course, which are an important record of day-to-day decisions made in Parliament and the debates around those decisions. Some of the discussions are routine parliamentary business, but there are, of course, key historic moments also reflected in the debates. And one moment relating to independence is the adoption of the Constitution, which you can see on that slide. So when Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare presented the Constitution to Parliament on 15 August 1975, he reflected on the significance of that moment, and I will just quote from that document. He said, "Mr. Chairman, this is a very important occasion. We have just adopted our Constitution and set a milestone in this country. The provisions that are now in the Constitution represent the true views of our people. We do not desire a Constitution which will give us cause not to feel free. The Constitution is made for the people, and it is no good if it restricts the people from doing what they wish. In many countries, constitutions have been written which have tended to bind the hands of their people. They did not leave flexibility for people to move about or make certain decisions. Therefore, it is gratifying that the representatives in this Assembly have laboured and worked hard to make our Constitution a reality, bearing in mind that it does not tie the hands of our future generations, but serves as guidance for them." This is obviously an important moment in PNG history, but the moments which led up to it, which included debates and discussions on what should be included in the Constitution, are equally important, and you can explore them through these parliamentary debates. So if we look at the next slide, one of the issues raised during the formation of the Constitution was that it should be written in Pidgin and Motu as well as English. Mr. Ansgar Kamel acknowledged the challenge of translating the Constitution into multiple languages, as it was quite a large document already, because of this size, but he argued that the effort might, in some way, should be made to translate it. And he said, "We must bear in mind that the majority of the people in the country cannot read or understand English. Therefore, I urge every newsletter to be written in Pidgin and Motu in order to explain the laws of the Constitution to the people. I'm not terribly concerned about the younger generation because they can read and understand English, but it is the older generation I'm worried about." And then we move on to another quote when Mr. Michael Ponderus agreed that the Constitution should be written in multiple languages. He said, "The Country Party was not involved in the preparation of this fourth draft, And so most of us do not understand what is being written in the clauses because they should have been drafted in English, Pidgin and Motu as well as they are the other common languages. The Constitution must be written and clearly explained in a language which the majority of the representatives and people understand, that is in either Pidgin or Motu. So you can see the value of these documents in that they show all of that work that was referred to in creating the Constitution and the deep discussions that were had in the lead up to its creation. In the lead up to independence, the decision on the appointment of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as head of state was also debated in Parliament. And you can see in the quote on the slide that that towards the end of that quote, Mr. Michael Ponderus also objected to the appointment of the Queen as the head of state. And if we move on to another example, here, you can see more discussion about the Queen being the head of state and concerns about that decision. But others suggested that they weren't as concerned. Others disagreed. So Mr. Carmel indicated that as he was part of the cabinet, so he supported the proposal, saying, if the Queen becomes head of state in Papua New Guinea, she will have very little power, and I do not see why there is so much disagreement over the issue. We can always replace her after a couple of years if we want to. Another perspective was Mr. Stanis Tollerman, who said, sir, there is no need for the Queen to unite Papua New Guinea because we have been united already before the Queen was invited to become the first head of state. I neither believe our people will be very happy to have an outsider like the Queen to become the head of our government, nor look upon her as our royal prerogative in the case of trouble. But as we see on slide 7, the Queen was appointed as the head of state, and His Royal Highness, then Prince Charles, now King Charles, attended the opening as the Queen's representative, and you can see his speech there on the slide. And I'll just pull a quote out for you because it is quite a small writing. At a time of celebration over the emergence of a new and independent nation into a world full of every kind of problem, there is inevitably a great sense of excitement and expectancy. The future is full of promise, opportunity, and a newfound individual freedom. A bit over 2 decades after independence, we see another major historical moment discussed at length in the parliamentary papers in the later versions we have. The tragic earthquake and tsunami in July 1998. One estimate indicates that between 1,600 and 2,200 people were killed in this disaster, and at least 10,000 people were displaced. The Parliament met for an emergency sitting in 1998, and I won't quote material from this collection as it was a harrowing event. But for those who are interested to read more, exploring the parliamentary papers for this sitting provides insight into the discussions about the emergency at the parliamentary level. As well as key events, we of course have prominent parliamentary figures and prominent figures in Papua New Guinea's history, as you've already seen in some of the quotes. The debates also lists members and ministers by electorate, and that's a valuable source of both political and local history, and you can see an example there of the detailed list you can see at the start of the papers. Another example of a speech from a prominent figure is this extract from Sir John Geyser's acceptance of the role of Speaker in the House of Assembly in 1964, prior to independence. And I just pulled this quote out because I liked, he made reference to the importance of his wife in making that decision. And he said, the person who made the final decision for me to accept your call and to do my best for the benefit of Papua New Guinea was no other than my dear and charming wife, Unubu Akai. She believes that as an Indigenous speaker is a symbol of Papua New Guinea striving for unity and nation building. And I just wanted to share a little bit about I think, quite exciting local history you can find in the papers. So one of the really exciting things about having the digitised debates on Trove is that they're searchable. And Liz will explain to you a little further down how you can search Trove. So you can search by place name and find relevant sections of the debates quite easily. One of the examples of discussion which provides insight into local history, is this question asked about the establishment of Nipper High School. And you can see the Minister for Education being asked about that in that extract on the left. And his response, where he said, "My department has already made plans, but land is not available and therefore it has been delayed." And if we do a general search on Trove, we can see an article which shows that the high school was opened in 1978 and by 1980 had 200 students. So that's one of the exciting things about digitising material and putting it on Trove, is that we can bring sources together and kind of find out the rest of the story as well. I'll take a look at two more examples of that from the pre-independence period. And you see in August 1965, another example of a discussion of the creation of a high school. And then on the right-hand side, you see discussion of the building of a wharf in Wewak to replace the existing one, which was in poor condition. And the person who's being asked the question replies, "Full investigation has shown that a wharf for the overseas vessels at Wewak could not be justified economically within the foreseeable future. The administration is now giving attention to a suitable coastal ships wharf, but I'm unable to say at this stage when construction will begin." Finally, before I hand over to Ruben, I just wanted to highlight a couple of other collections which are digitised and available on Trove, which I think you might find interesting. And this first one is a collection of photographs and coloured slides from the 1951 eruption of Mount Lamington. And that's obviously an aerial slide that's quite a close view. Then we also have some digitised map collections, and this one here you see is the PNG sub-provincial boundaries from 1974. So that's an interesting time period, of course, quite close to independence. So I thought that might be of interest. And there's some examples which, if you go into Trove and find these, you can zoom in, so see the maps a little bit more closely. But this one, Rivers of Papua New Guinea, I thought was quite interesting. And finally, there is this school book, which is written in one of the Fly River languages, which is worth exploring. And finally, it's sometimes material, there's Papua New Guinea material in larger collections. So the Ellis Rowan collection is a very large collection, but it does include some material from Papua New Guinea because Ellis Rowan visited Papua New Guinea twice between 1916 and 1918. She travelled extensively and painted 47 of the 52 known species of birds of paradise, and you can see a beautiful example there. I'll now hand over to Ruben, who will start the demonstration portion of our webinar on how to use the National Archives record search. Thanks, Ruben.
Thanks, Rebecca. Move on to the next slide. The National Archives online database is called Record Search. It's the searchable catalogue of the National Archives collection. The full collection contains over 52 million items, which is about 375 kilometres of shelf space. But Record Search contains details of the creators, the collections, and the items, and their digitised versions. The statistics on the screen are larger than that now as we continue to add item descriptions and digital copies to Record Search at a rate of several 100,000 each year. And the database currently describes about 43% of all items in the collection. So 43% of that 52 million. Records are arranged in this hierarchical structure using the Commonwealth Records Series system. That's the CRS. So you can see this pyramid here. The primary elements are organisations, which are made up of agencies and persons who create series of records, and each of those records we call an item. To fully understand a record, there might be information about it you need to know. In addition to its title or even its content, you need its context about who created it and when, why, or what other records exist that deal with the same issue or subject. Agencies can be central or state or local offices of Commonwealth government departments, statutory authorities, courts, tribunals, and each of them has a Commonwealth agency number or CA number. There's a few examples relevant on the screen there. Alongside agencies are Commonwealth persons, such as Prime Ministers, Governors General, senior public servants, who have a CP number. Underneath that, series. A series is a group of records that has a similar format or information content, or that's resulted from the same accumulation or filing process. So they usually contain items in a sequence that's numerical or alphabetical or chronological. Before I jump in away from the slides and into a live demonstration, I'll just show you this slide about getting help with your searching. So after you've had a go yourself, you may have further queries, and we welcome your inquiries by phone, email, or even better, the online forms on our website. So let me jump right over to the homepage of the National Archives. On which you can see a link right here to record search. We land here at the basic search, which searches the titles and records at the item level, and you can refine by a date range. So let's just test it by looking up that soldier that Amanda talked about. We can see there's 5 different records actually here related to them. I believe that 4th one there is the main service record we've seen some excerpts from, but I'm going to click this 2nd one, which takes us to the item details screen, which gives us a number of fields of information about this record. The title, the date range that the contents is dated. The control symbol is the original kind of numbering or name of the file as it was created by the agency, and then the item ID is a National Archives imposed unique number for that record. We have the location, it's in Melbourne in storage, and the access status open for this record. It could also be closed or not yet examined. So records need to be examined after they enter the open period before they can be released and viewed. Records often have simple titles, such as a person's name, or a very short description of the item, and you really need the context of the series and the recording agency to know what you're really looking at. So we can click the series number here and end up at the series details page. And so we see that this record is from a series called Naval Biographical Files, and it was created by the Navy Office, now under Department of Defence. And even more helpfully, the series note field will usually give us a detailed description, often about what kinds of forms or information is held in each record, the history of the creation of these records. And in this case, I guess we can see these are biographical files, which might have been used for, I guess, media releases or events So there could be some interesting, more a kind of a potted biographical history of Yaowiga held in that record. Let's have a look at the other search types. Along the top tab here, we have advanced search. Here we go. And this lets you choose at what level you would like to search. So you can search for series or search for different agencies, as well as searching for items. And all those fields we saw on the item and series detail screens earlier, you're able to search for, using those, not just the title, but if you have an item ID that you've jotted down earlier, you can jump straight to that record. You can refine by date and even by the location and format of items, audio, photographs, etc. All those fields are here. The next tab, Name Search, is geared towards searching for records about individuals, and the drop-down list of categories here will restrict your search to selected series. For example, if we go ADF to Army to World War I and try a name, we'll be getting results that are just within those few series of World War I service records. Now, a lot of records may not include a full first name on them, so you can try putting an initial when you're searching. Next one across the top here, I'll jump over to passenger arrivals, which searches an index of the names of passengers from 3 key series in the collection. So these are huge collections of ships logs and passenger arrival cards, and the key details from each of those have been transcribed into this searchable index, which now has over 10 million entries. You can refine your search by all these various fields: year of arrival, the name of the vessel, and again, I recommend you can try searching just a family name or just an initial, as many of these ship's logs will have just an initial on them. And each of these entries then links to the relevant document, often taking you straight to the correct page, but you can flick through digitized items like this to find what you're looking for. The last thing I'll talk about is photo search. Keep in mind that photographic records still show up in the results for other searches under basic and advanced search and so on, but this is a convenient way of searching only the photographic collection. So you can try names, places, topics. Let's just do a test here for Moresby. And we'll see any photos. And we can change our view as well from the grid to seeing a bit more information like the title and the date and so on about each photo as they load in there. A big tip that applies to using any kind of search is to try a range of keywords and trying alternative spellings or even slight shortenings or misspellings of names. There was not necessarily any consistent terminology to name records, so you should try common synonyms when searching for a keyword. For example, records about migration might be under keywords like immigration, migrants, arrival, entry, admission, and so on and so on. But as we mentioned, after you've had a good look around, feel free to drop us a line and ask us a question. I'll stop sharing my screen now and hand over to Elizabeth.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Ruben. I'm Liz Mackenzie, and I work in Trove communities at the National Library. My area works with the people that use Trove. Before I start demonstrating how you can find material in Trove, I thought I'd explain a bit more background. Although there are some images from the National Archives that appear in Trove, Record Search is the place to go to search documents from the National Archives, and Trove is the place to go to search documents from the National Library and other collecting institutions across Australia. Today, I'll be focusing on items from the National Library. There are many different ways that you can investigate material about Papua New Guinea. In Trove today, as with Rebecca's talk, we're going to look at 3 types of material. Local coverage of the time, such as newspapers, which is really useful to show how issues were reported, and official sources, such as records of government. Also, local community history, such as photos and oral histories. So this variety of sources won't be discovered in a single search. There's also one thing that's helpful to understand about Trove, which is that there's 2 types of content in there. There's digitised content, which is full text, so the item itself is readable online, and information about content, such as how many pages is in an item and what libraries have it. So I'm just going to share my screen. Digitised content available in the categories newspapers and gazettes and magazines and newsletters. But if you look in the books and libraries category, you'll find information about content that may or may not be available online. As I mentioned earlier, one source is newspapers, and that's where we're going to start. You would use this way to search if you knew the region you were interested in and you wanted to see what newspapers were available. So I'm going to click on Explore, the Browse Newspapers and Gazettes, the Open browser. I'm going to leave it as I'm interested in newspapers, but you can try a similar search for gazettes. Gazettes are government publications that can contain all sorts of notifications and sometimes regulations. I'm going to browse articles by place, go into International, look at P, and we can see that we've got 4 titles here. Now, the wonderful digitisation team at the National Library have also just completed some more titles, and they will be appearing here when they finish ingesting into Trove. If you click on the information icon here, you can see what parts of the newspaper have been digitised, and you can select relevant dates. I'm actually going to go into the date of independence itself and see what we can see. Selecting September 16th. And if we click on the I, we will see what the first page of the Papua New Guinea Post Courier looked like on that day. I'm now going to demonstrate how you would search for an official source that Rebecca mentioned earlier, the House of Assembly debates that the National Library has also finished digitising to commemorate this anniversary of independence. Excuse me. Rebecca mentioned some of the fantastic things that are included in these documents, so firstly, let's find out how to locate them in Trove. In this case, we know the source exists and we know the title, so we have some clues about where and how to look. As I mentioned before, things that you find in the books and libraries category may or may not be digitised. If you're not sure whether it's digitised and online or not, this can be a good place to find out. We're going to go back to the first page of Trove, and this time we're going to go to the advanced search feature here and filter by books and libraries. This brings up the advanced search screen. You can see at the top there's keyword, title, creator, subject, and some more search boxes that you can use underneath. In this case, we are going to type the House of Assembly debates into the top search screen and click on search. We are also going to use the filters down here on the right and limit it to content that is available online. And here we find the House of Assembly debates. If we click on the title, we can see we've got a read option, a borrow option, and a buy option. We want to read it online, so we're going to click on read and then click on the Trove link through to the item. We can click on browse the collection to see the entire run of material that's been digitised. Up the top here, there's also a bit of navigation where you can click to see more. If you want to go into an item, you can do that here. Click on any link. And when it loads, you can see that we've got the digitised item itself in the right pane here. And on the left pane, we've got what we call OCR, or Optical Character Recognition. This is software-generated version of the text, and sometimes it's got mistakes. You can see a little one there. It should be the 8th of November. Now, if you want to, you can click on the little pen and edit that text, and that's called text correction. I'm not going to go into that now, but if you want to know more, you'll find it in the help pages here. So what if you wanted to search within this title for some of the regions or the people that Rebecca mentioned? So this is where we use a little trick. Because we now know that this title is available online, we can use one of the other categories. In this case, the House of Assembly debates are in the category magazines and newsletters. So once more, we're going to go back to the home page. We're going to click on the advanced search, and we're going to click on magazines and newsletters. Now, this search screen looks a lot like the other one before we typed the title in this box. This time, we're going to use the title box with a little arrow down here, which will bring up all the digitised titles in this category. And we're going to select the one that we want. So now that we have that title selected, we're going to be searching within the title for something that Rebecca mentioned in her talk about a new wharf being built at Wewak. So we'll use the search terms wharf, Wewak, and the speaker, Simogen. Now the search results are listed by relevance. So at the moment, we're going to go into the first one. Click into read again and into the item itself. Now, in this case, you can see that the OCR text on the left has snippets in it with our search terms highlighted. If you go and have a look at all of these, you can quickly decide whether the content is relevant for your search. This is the one that we're after. And you can see that we've just searched within that title for the example that Rebecca mentioned in her talk. The third type of material that I'd like to talk about today is community history. So these types of searches are really wonderful for showing a more personal view of events. For photos, we can try a similar approach and limit it to the images, maps, and artifacts category. But today I wanted to show you some of the oral histories that are available on Trove, and they live in the music, audio, and video category. So for this search, we're going to use the simple search bar up the top, and we're going to type in independence and Papua New Guinea. This will search for both of these terms occurring individually throughout the items. I'm going to limit it to music, audio and video, and then click on search. You can see that there is some sound available here and some videos. If you limit it to interview and lecture and talk, you will see some more sound, and further down a link to an oral history project that's available at the National Library, and below it there's one that's available online. This time it's listen instead of read, and through to the title again. You can click on the I accept the end user license agreement to listen to it directly online. Those are some ways to search for 3 types of material in Trove. But I would also like to mention one last thing, which is another useful site called Digital Pacific. This site pulls together digital content about the Pacific from over 900 institutions, including Trove. So I'll just type Digital Pacific into the search bar. You can see that the content is arranged by geographical order. And if we click on Papua New Guinea, there is a great arrangement of items that you can filter by media type, by creation date, and holding institution. This is a wonderful resource to browse all sorts of interesting information. That's all I had planned to show you today. Happy searching.